Welcome to Gate City Insider. I'm Rosemary Plybon. Did you resolve to get healthier in 2023? Maybe you've considered your eating habits or exercise. Did you take your mental health into account? It is just as important, maybe even more so at times. And today we're going to talk about ways to make it a priority for yourself and for your family. Debra Mack is Behavioral Health Director for Guilford County. Welcome.
Thank you.
So glad to have you with us. I think when we talk about mental health, immediately people's minds kind of go to problems, right? But really mental health is just health, and we should be thinking about it all the time, not just if maybe something is wrong.
Yes, exactly. So it's that wellness. And how do you find that balance to stay on that wellness scale? You know, like your emotions, how do you keep your emotions in that check to where you're not going sadness and then you go into a depression? So wellness is keeping that happy medium and finding that balance to balance your emotions, to balance the stress of life, to balance your finances. Even that can bring that stress into your life.
Particularly now. Yeah.
So wellness is really finding that medium, and how do we stay there and stay at that steady state?
Okay, so that is the question. So how do we make it a priority? What kinds of things can we do? Like, what are some good daily habits really to make sure we're taking care of that wellness?
Yeah, so one, finding someone to talk to when you need to talk. Two, setting a routine. You know, sometimes people think a routine is something that's boring, but routine is truly something that can keep you on track, you know, and keep you moving in that right direction. So sometimes meditation, some people meditate. So there's a lot of different coping skills that we can develop and we can use that will help us manage our stress and manage our mental wellness. Eating right, drinking plenty of water, those things that also help that physical body also helps us mentally. So really learning how do we balance that? How do we balance the amount of stress that we take on? You know, one thing I always say, one good thing about maintaining your mental wellness is knowing how to say no, knowing where to set some limits and set some boundaries. And sometimes we have difficulty doing it, especially with families. So one, taking in those physical things that help us, like water and nutrition. Two, knowing when to say no and knowing how to set your boundaries and how to kind of develop a routine that best fits you and your situation.
Yeah, let's talk about routine for a minute, because I think that's a really important one. I mean, you know, we have a routine. I have children, and so it's a certain time we get up. We all do breakfast at a certain time, brush your teeth. We make our beds. You know, for me, I know a lot of people do things like put their wallet in order, you know, with their bills and things like that. What are some things that you use that are just simple, easy things?
Just simple routines is one thing. I set my clock 30 minutes early.
Okay. 30 minutes before you have to go.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. 30 minutes before I have to be there. And that allows for those interruptions, because interruptions may come. Especially working in the mental health field, I like to set 30 minutes before an appointment because interruptions are going to come. So, you know, preparing for those interruptions. So think about what amount of time you need to allow for interruptions, and then add that time into it. And that way the interruptions don't stress you out so much. So that's one thing that I do. I kind of pad my time. I pad my routine with extra time.
Right, but you have to be careful that you don't say, oh, I've got that extra 30 minutes. I'm going to hit the snooze button 3 times.
Yes, because that is attractive at some mornings, especially on a rainy, cold morning like this.
Yeah, we've typically had a lot of these rainy, cold mornings recently. So we've been talking about wellness, but when is it time? How do you know you need to have a little checkup, or when you need to check in with somebody? Or should you just be doing that on the regular?
Yes. You know, someone to talk to on a regular is a really good thing. I think, you know, mental health and seeking mental wellness and taking care of me used to be a little bit taboo.
Yeah.
But now it truly is not. You know, there's truly more support around. I have a therapist, or I have a counselor. I have someone that I can talk to, because we all need that at times. You know, sometimes life brings us things that I could just use somebody else's opinion on how to handle this and what would be the best course of action for this. So when you find that those coping skills we talked about aren't working anymore, maybe you've hit that snooze button for the last 3 weeks and you've just laid in bed, you know, you haven't used those coping skills of, you know, padding that time. So now it may be time to look for some professional help. Like, Can I seek out a therapist or a counselor that can give me some different coping skills from what I have? So there's no set time. I always say when stress of life interrupts your ability to live, love, laugh, then it's time to seek some help. It's time to look for someone that you can talk to.
Yeah, if you haven't laughed in a while, if you're listening or watching right now and thinking, well, I don't know when the last time I laughed is, that's maybe a good signal to you that something's going on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What are some the red flags though that, it's really not time to wait. You need to go ahead and find somebody, or you need to make that call now.
Yes. So if you are feeling unusually sad for like 2 weeks or more, then it's time to seek some help, because that may be going into depression. Or if your anxiety is so much for you, you're isolating yourself in the house. So when you start to feel hopeless, helpless, and isolating, those are the times when you feel like, oh, well, there's no hope for me in this situation. Then it's time to get some help. Or I can't see any light at the end of the tunnel, then it's time to seek help. So for every person, that time frame is going to be different. But when you notice that this is way out of the usual for me, or for family members saying, I'm noticing this and I'm noticing that, you have that support system and they're around you to help you kind of stay in check. So those things, when you're noticing, if you can't notice it yourself, but you're hearing it from a lot of different people in a lot of different places, that stress is starting to show up. You can't get to work on time. You can't perform your job. You can't perform your daily routines. You can't get up out of bed and get the kids to school. So those things kind of start to affect your ability to live, love, and laugh. So really paying attention to that. And for each individual, it may be different when that time is, I may just need to rest a couple of more days and then I can get back on track. But if that doesn't happen, then it's time to seek some help to get back on track.
Yeah, and I like what you said too about, listening to those around you. If people are saying, you don't seem like yourself, or is everything okay? And you're hearing that over and over, that's another sign that, hey, even though I feel like maybe I'm okay, something has changed. Yeah, for sure. What services does Guilford County offer in the way of wellness and mental health?
Yes. So at the Guilford County Behavioral Health Center, there is a 24/7 walk-in urgent care. So when you think about urgent care for physical needs, this is an urgent care for mental health needs. So you can walk in if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling like you're in a crisis, if you're anxious, if you're looking for services, you can walk into that urgent care any time of the day or night, and it is open. Also at that center, we have a facility-based crisis for adults, which is a shorter length of stay. It is it's not quite inpatient, but you are there for 3 to 5 days at a time to kind of get a person stabilized and get them to that next level of care that they need, whether that be outpatient therapy, or it may be that you can't get that crisis stabilized in that time frame, so that person may need to elevate to an inpatient setting. So that service is there, and also outpatient services is there in that building. So you can get outpatient therapy, you can get medication management, you can attend groups, you can attend substance use groups and partial hospitalization groups.
All right, and also recently, just in the past 18 months or so, or a year, 988 came out. Tell us about that.
So 988 is that number that's easy to remember. When we think about 911, when it came out, now we have 988. So you can call 988 for emotional support. You can call 988 when you're in a crisis. And what that number does is it will connect you with the services in your community and refer you to the place that you need to go next. Or like I said, if you just need someone to talk to. So 988, unlike 911, as kids we were told, don't you dial that number.
It better be an emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In this case, it doesn't have to be an emergency. You can just need someone to talk to. And also with 988, you can text to that number also.
That seems great, yeah.
Yes, because we know our young adults and our teenagers and adolescents, they like that texting. They would rather text than to make a phone call. So that option is there for them also.
And that 988, can you use it also if you just want to support someone and you don't know how to do it? You know, I want to say, I'm worried about Debra, and what can I do? And they can help connect you. Is that right?
Yes, and they can even give you some ways and some key ways, because sometimes when we offer help, it's not always received.
Yeah.
And it may be the way we offer it. Mm-hmm. So they can talk you through, well, how do you offer that? You know, and one good thing is you can always try to get the person, I'm seeing this, what are you noticing? Mm-hmm. So if you get them to notice those things in themselves, they're more likely to receive that help and not feel like, oh, you're pointing your finger at me.
Oh, yeah. Well, we talked about all these. Guilford County has so many great services to help, to keep, to stay in good mental health. And then if you find yourself that you need some support, there's this there as well. But people are still going to be nervous about it. I mean, there still is some nervousness around it if you've not talked to somebody before, if you've never been to outpatient or inpatient. Can you kind of tell us what those different steps look like, what they might feel like so people kind of get an idea?
The one thing I love about the new facility is when you walk in, it is truly a open, well-lit, beautiful facility to where it doesn't feel stigmatizing. Mm-hmm. And the staff, the Guilford County Behavioral Health Center is the clinical staff there is employed by Cone Health. So those people have worked in the mental health field for a very long time. And so they know how to be therapeutic. They know how to be not stigmatizing with a mental health issue. So the ability to walk into a place that is open and receiving is what makes the difference. And truly they're there to say, we're here to help you and to guide you. Mm-hmm. We're not here to lock you behind these doors or lock you up or take away your rights. That stigmatizing piece of mental health is truly going away. And I think as a county and as a nation, we're starting to see that we cannot stigmatize people. You cannot make people feel bad because they have a mental illness, because it's just like any other illness.
Right. Yeah. So when you sit down to talk to somebody, what does that often sound like?
So it's really about, okay, tell me what's going on and how can we help? How can we help you get to those next steps? So, really hearing their story, hearing what's going on with them, putting them at the center of this, because any help that we give has to be the help that that person wants. Mm-hmm. So, really making that an option. And these are your options. So truly making people feel like you have a choice in this. Like this is not something that we're going to force you to do, but we're here to help you make a choice as to what works for you best and how this would fit into your life. Because, there used to be a fear, well, if I go to a mental health hospital, maybe they're going to keep me there. Then what about my kids? How do I do this? How do I get that taken care of? So it's really considering the whole person, their support systems, and really helping them to the next step that they need to take.
No one size fits all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, and Debra, I think that, just having you here, hearing your voice, hearing how you respond, that's kind of what it's like. I mean, you have somebody that is like Debra, who's going to have this voice, this understanding, this listening, and that's what you're there to do.
Yes.
Yeah, any one piece of advice you'd want to leave people with?
I would say whenever you feel like you need some help, you should never be ashamed to ask for help. We all need help at some point in time. And and Guilford County has put these services out here. It was built for the community. So the opportunity for the community to come and say, oh, hey, I can take advantage of this. Mm-hmm. So when you need help, ask.
Yeah, it's here for it. That's what it's for. Yes. Debra, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, once again, 988 is the number to connect you immediately to services close to you, close to your neighborhood, exactly what you need, help you through your next steps, or if you're talking to somebody, help you to talk to them through their next steps as well. Well, mental health doesn't start at 18, of course. Mental health care, I should say, doesn't start when someone turns 18. Children and adolescents need care just like adults. And when we come back, we're going to learn more about services available for young people right here in Guilford County. So stay with us. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. Today our focus is mental health care, caring for your mind and your emotions when life is good and when things maybe aren't so good. Just like adults, children need mental health care and need to know that their mental health matters. Ashley Sparks is Executive Director of the Youth and Adolescent Facility-Based Crisis Center, Alexander Youth Network. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here. Let's start with how and when should parents or caregivers start talking to their children about wellness and mental health?
Absolutely. This is a conversation that should start as early as possible and be had as often as possible with little kids, obviously in age-appropriate ways. I think the more that we can help kids identify their emotions, that will help them later in life when they're struggling because they'll know how they're feeling. It's also really important to get little kids to understand how their emotions impact their body and how they feel, because that will also help a lot later in life. So I think parents, you can model good behavior, talk about your mental health, obviously, again, in age-appropriate ways, but start those conversations and be the model for your kid and show them what wellness looks like.
So let's start like when they're real little. Like what are some good words and phrases and like opportunities maybe with, the toddlers and the youngest children just learning to talk?
Yeah, they have lots of little books and pictures where you can identify like I'm happy and you have a smile, or I'm sad and that makes you cry. A lot of kids, especially in this day and age, anxiety, have stomach aches and things like that. So kind of connecting that it's not a physical illness, but actually something that their emotions are contributing to, even as a toddler, I think is really important.
Yeah, and then of course, once you get into school, school-age children, they start facing lots of other emotions and then dealing with other children.
Absolutely. And even in kindergarten nowadays, a lot of kindergarten teachers are incorporating mindfulness. So like being present in this moment with your body and the feelings. That's starting even in pre-K and kindergarten now. So teaching kids to be present with their emotions helps them be better and more social with their peers.
I read something just recently about, and I think we all do it. I know I did it with my kids when they fall down and say, "You're okay, you're okay." And that is really counterintuitive because they're not okay.
Right.
And they're hurt. And so then you're giving their mind mixed messages. Like, so that you're okay thing is like, I want to suck it back in all the times I said it.
Right. Yeah, no, but acknowledging it's okay that you fell and you hurt yourself. It's okay to be upset about that, I think.
I know it hurts.
Yeah, I know it hurts, but we can make it through. That kind of resiliency is what you want to build in your kids.
Yeah, really interesting. Okay, so what are some common issues that you see when wellness isn't being addressed as it should, or when things just get out of control for children and for teenagers?
Yeah, I think anxiety is a really big piece of the puzzle for adolescents right now. I think we've lost a year of socialization with the pandemic, and that is huge in terms of development. I think the APA even recently kind of backed down some developmental milestones for kids because of missing that year of socialization. So we are seeing a population of specifically teens that are more anxious, that are having a more difficult time kind of understanding their feelings. So they're worrying a lot about the future and people that are around them. And then social media is kind of everywhere, and that causes a lot of identity issues, kind of self-esteem issues. So those are some of the biggest problems we're seeing kids face right now.
And what does that look like if you're in your child, that what you might not know to name it, or you might know that they're anxious, but what are the things that kind of it might show up as?
I think that we see kids that are very withdrawn. They tend to kind of go by themselves into their room, spend less time with their friends, spend less time with their family doing things that they enjoy. So that kind of withdrawn thing is what I would tell parents to look for.
And you mentioned with little kids, but even bigger kids, the stomach aches, headaches.
Exactly. Stomach aches, headaches, not wanting to go to school, just really having a loss of desire to do normal age-appropriate things or things that they once used to like doing. Those are kind of key indicators that something's going on.
Yeah. So how do you know when it's time to do more to get help?
I think if your child's behavior has changed in any kind of big ways where they don't want to be around people, they don't want to go to school, they don't want to do the things that they've enjoyed, that's usually a really big indicator for parents to be like, hey, do you want to go talk to somebody? And it doesn't have to be super intense in the levels of care like facility-based crisis provides, but you can start very small.
Right.
So that's what I would suggest.
Okay, so how do you start very small though, especially as a parent?
Yeah.
And, if you ask them and they're like, no, I'm good. No, I don't want to.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine.
Well, I think it's really important to know that mental health care has exploded lately, and there's lots of ways that kids can connect with mental health care. It can be texting, like Debra said earlier, through the 988, or you can do telehealth where kids can stay in their rooms on their computers, which are kind of comfortable places for them, and speak to a therapist. There are lots, and beyond 988, there are lots of other resources where kids can text or chat online, and talk that way. So I would always encourage parents to not give up, because there are so many different kinds of ways that mental health can reach your child. And even if you just start as a family practicing things like mindfulness, you can go on YouTube and Google mindfulness, and it will have a 5-minute breathing exercise. And that kind of helps families center themselves and kids center themselves, so that they can kind of block out some of the noise and the chaos of what's going on and really focus on themselves and their wellness.
Yeah, I mean, that works. We do it at our house. When some of my kids will have trouble going to sleep, and we talk through kind of a meditation exercise. Okay, imagine you're on your beach, and can you hear the birds? Can you hear the ocean? And that really is calming for all of us. It puts me to sleep just about every time. I think what you're saying too is that, trust your spidey sense a little bit. Like, if you feel like something's wrong, don't give up.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, and mental health is something that even if something's not wrong and you seek help, it doesn't hurt anything.
Right.
So I think there's nothing to lose. And yes, I believe in parent spidey sense.
Absolutely. Okay, so what services are available in Guilford County for children and teens?
Absolutely. So Alexander Youth Network specifically has a full array of services. So it kind of starts in the outpatient world, where that's where you can have telehealth, kind of talk to somebody on a computer, or go into an office. But if those things don't work, there are things called community-based services, and there are lots of different kinds of those. But that's where you have a team of mental health professionals that kind of come into your family and work with not just your child, but your family too. Because I think that's an important thing for parents to understand. Sometimes when a child has mental illness, parents have to change how they do things and how they respond to things. And so the goal is to always try to keep the child in the home, in the community, out of kind of facility settings. But if it gets too much and your child can't be safe in the home with their friends and with your family, there are options like facility-based crisis, where a child can come and stay until they can keep themselves safe back at home.
Okay, so talk through a little bit. I think there's probably a lot of questions wondering, if my child sees a therapist, talks to a therapist, how much of a window do I as a parent or caregiver have into that? What's allowed? What do I need to know? And where's that balance?
Yeah, so as a therapist, that is always one of the harder kind of balances to walk, because what the child and the therapist talk about is confidential and is private. I think it's really important to know that mental health workers will always loop parents in if it becomes something that's detrimentally impacting your child. I think there are a lot of ways to engage parents, and that mental health workers find a lot of ways to engage parents without betraying their child's confidence, but also saying, hey, so how does this work in the family? And kind of modifying things while still keeping the integrity of that confidential relationship, because it's really important for that child to feel confident that they can talk to someone and that it is private, and that they have that outlet. But it's equally as important to make parents aware of how things are impacting their child and things that they can change to make their child safe. So it's a balancing act, but I think that parents should trust that mental health workers will give them the information that they need.
I feel like I know the answer to this, but I know a lot of parents are going to say, how long? How long does this take? How long till I see improvements in my child? I want this to be better. Is there a schedule?
There really is not. And if I had any advice to give to any family that had a child that was struggling with mental illness, I would tell them that it's a slow process. Mental illness is something that will come back later in life too, as your life changes and as your experiences change. And what we try to do is give kids and families the tools necessary to kind of overcome the hurdles. And it is a very, very slow process. So I would again say, don't give up. If it's not working, absolutely talk to your treatment team about that. Like we said earlier, there are lots of different kinds of therapy. There are lots of different kinds of treatment. So I would encourage people to never give up, that there's always something else to try, and to just keep on pushing through.
Okay, we've talked about that there's so much more talk about mental health and wellness now than there ever was, but I think there is still some stigma, there's still nervousness. I think for a child to say somebody, no, I don't want to do that, that's not me, I'm fine.
Right.
I don't want anybody to know that I'm doing this. And maybe even for the parent to admit that there's something going on with their child, and maybe it's, I'm not a good parent, or I've done something wrong, or what are they going to say about me?
Right.
So how do we kind of improve that?
I think having transparent conversations with people, not just in your own family, but your friends, the people in your church, the people that you see regularly, having conversations about mental health is kind of how you reduce that stigma. When kids and families see that, oh my gosh, this is something that happens with lots of different kinds of people, they're more willing to engage in treatment and be transparent about it.
We were talking earlier with Debra about the urgent care for adults. Is there such thing for children too?
So the urgent care for adults also serves children, but what Alexandria Youth Network provides is a child and adolescent facility-based crisis. So what we're doing is addressing acute, kind of in the moment safety concerns for children that can't keep themselves or other people around them safe. Ours is a little bit longer than the adult side because they're kids and it kind of sometimes takes more time. So we keep kids for an average of 12 days and really help them and give them coping skills so that when they return home, even if they have overwhelming feelings, it's less of a safety risk because we've given them skills to kind of combat that.
What do you want parents in watching most to understand about mental health care?
I want parents to know that it's not necessarily something that's gone wrong, because I think that's what a lot of parents feel. The world is really hard right now, and kids are feeling that just as much as adults are. So I think parents should know that there is hope always, that the first step in the journey is as important as the last, no matter how long it takes. So just take the leap into getting your kid help, because it will be worth it in the end.
Absolutely, and they will know. I mean, that you're on their side. It's just,
absolutely,
again, teaching them that they have this circle of people around them to hold them up and to lift them up and to pick them back up when they fall down. So,
absolutely.
Thank you. Just really appreciate it. I want to remind you about the mental health hotline. 988 is the number to call. If it's an emergency, if it's not an emergency, if you have a question, if you're worried about someone, if you want to talk to somebody, if you want to text to that number. 988 is a really easy way to do that, a really easy way to get connected to services in your community right away. It's just an easy thing to remember. And also, you can go to guilfordcountync.gov, just search mental health. It'll take you to the behavioral health page. You can find out more about all these services we've been talking about today. Really easy way to kind of get engaged, find out what's out there before you start making those phone calls, and so that you just know maybe where you can start with yourself, somebody you know, a friend or a loved one, and of course a child as well. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time with us today. That is our time. Until next time, have a wonderful day.